Trade skills for money. Now it's time to talk about trade skills again. I mentioned before that trade skills require an investment. In some cases, that means a fair bit of coin. However, you can also make money off of those very same trade skills if you are willing to put in the work to craft the items that players want. You can subsequently make a hefty profit off of your trade skill. Let me explain with a couple of examples. I'll start with the low-hanging fruit, bags. Everyone needs bags. Player-made bags are superior to the vendor bags once they reach wool, which is the second level. Furthermore, just the cloth satchels, the very first ones, are superior to the vendor satchels by 2 whole slots. In any case, most people would rather pay a player for a backpack than pay the vendor 1 gold for a backpack. The player backpack will be cheaper, especially if you collect the 42 cloth scraps for it yourself over time. I've seen cloth backpacks selling as low as 15 silver and as high as 50 silver, depending on the server. Therefore, if you can get to the point where you can make the cloth backpacks and cloth satchels, you'll be able to make your investment back. But it will not be easy or fast unless you want to invest a substantial amount of coin into power leveling it by buying cloth from players at a high price, which is counterintuitive to the purposes of this guide. Blacksmithing is another important trade skill. Everyone needs weapons after all. Putting in the effort to grind up blacksmithing is back-breaking work, but it is also incredibly rewarding if you can make better weapons than what you're going to find on a corpse. The same goes for armor, but to a slightly lesser extent. The investment here is higher than for tailoring, for instance. You need several tools, and mining and smelting ore isn't free either since they introduced ingot molds. However, a crafted copper longsword is superior to a dropped corroded bronze longsword, which drops from level 15 plus mobs. So it's absolutely worthwhile to grind blacksmithing if you are interested in doing so. You can make some money, particularly when you reach higher levels and can make iron gear. I had an iron great scythe on my druid, and that thing slapped. Love that weapon. Great times. I found it on a shady merchant even. Talk about luck. Carpentry will become useful once housing is properly implemented. Everyone who has a house is going to want furniture for it after all, so you'll be able to make plenty of money. Alchemy can make potions that give you the speed of the wild buff, the single most important buff in the entire game, movement speed buff. Those I've seen selling for a gold each. Talk about making money. Now, before you all run off to the alchemy merchant, let me warn you. These sow pots are a bitch to make. You need wolf hearts, which you have to grind over in Califrey, the Elflands, the place you have to take a 30-plus minute boat ride to reach. They're also fairly rare. I had about 13 of them after leveling from 1 to 9 in the elf zones, and you need multiple of them to make a single pot. So the grind for them is real, which is why they're so pricey. In general, some trade skills will be better moneymakers than others. Leatherworking won't be the biggest moneymaker, for example, early on. There just isn't all that much useful stuff that they can make. However, what leatherworkers can do is make saddles. So once people start getting mounts and needing saddles for them, then the leatherworkers will have their turn to shine. The devs have also stated that leatherworkers will make trade skill specific items in the future, which will give them some further usefulness. Speaking of which, the devs are actively changing the entire trade skill system while I'm releasing these videos, so everything I've said here might be null and void by early access in June, but hopefully this general point will still prove true. Trade skills are an upfront investment for a delayed profit in the long term. What that long term looks like will depend on which trade skill you pursue.